The reason I say yes or no to deals is the price I pay for the deal. Okay, so in our work, you're only successful if you make money at the end. That's it. There's no other metric.
You worked with lots of founders. What do you find a common trait in all successful early stage founders?
It takes an incredible amount of resilience to succeed, and it takes an incredible amount of patience and stubbornness to keep going.
Walid Mansour, the deal maker behind some of the region's biggest startup successes. From engineering classrooms in France to the UAE Prime Minister's office to co-founding one of the most powerful VC firms, Middle East Venture Partners. He's helped launch companies that now shape how we pay, how we shop, how we live. And in this episode of the Titans podcast, he opens up like never before about the grind, the strategy, and what it really takes to back winners before the world believes in them.
Pledged through a foundation about $10 billion, partially for that mission. So the mission was insane. It was crazy. It was a vision that was bigger than life.
What do you think a person should have, or in what state a certain person should be in to take this decision and start their own company?
I think it's a calling.
If I give you a blank check, no board to answer to, what kind of fund would you build today?
It's a very hard question.
Let's start by your journey. You're the co-founder and CEO of MEVP, Middle East Venture Partners, one of the most successful venture capitals in the MENA region. So what initially sparked your interest into the world of venture capital?
So the journey started around the year 2006, 2007 when I moved to Dubai. And back then I was working for the Prime Ministry Office of the UAE. So I had a public sector job. And within that institution, I was part of the strategy team, and we had to think about what are the next big thing for Dubai. And through that strategic thinking process that took a long time, we identified that actually Dubai had to be the center of entrepreneurship for a radius of 6 hours flight around Dubai, because within 6 hours flight of Dubai, there's about 1.5 billion people that live in that radius, close to 2 billion people. And what we thought that would make Dubai stand out if it would position itself as the city of entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship back then was really linked to employment, to youth, was linked to education. So it was a very complex topic to think about, let alone how to let Dubai be the center of it at a time where the city was really not what it is today. So that's where the journey started, because we started getting interested in investing in the first steps or the infrastructure behind entrepreneurships, which are institutions. So universities, labs, accelerators, incubators.
At the time, who are you?
Still that was basically the Prime Ministry office. So okay. And Prime Minister is still Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who is an extraordinary visionary person and probably one of the best humans I've had the pleasure to work for. And given his vision, given not just his vision, given the establishment behind the city, was really looking at the human infrastructure, not just the physical infrastructure. My journey began, and it began by meeting universities, labs, SMEs, entrepreneurs, investing in what was then the very first accelerators and incubators, not in Dubai, but all over the Middle East, in Jordan, in Morocco, in Lebanon. So this is where the journey really started. It was sparked by this, and the UAE had pledged through a foundation about $10 billion, partially for that mission. So you had a crazy amount of capital coming or pledged. You had a city that was looking to cement its position as a leader in something that was completely new and that had no credentials, no track record, no even good publicity to center it in that. So the mission was insane. It was crazy. It was a vision that was bigger than life. And through that journey, I was really helped to meet those people. Also around that time, there was a big boom in the private equity space in the Middle East, specifically in the Gulf region, where a lot of the PE firms back then were actively looking to raise funds to invest in private companies. But nothing was done for venture capital. So I had met my co-founder back then, Walid, and he was running a business angel network, one of the first business angel networks that was part of another institution, which is Dubai Holding. We met, as we say, clicked, and I had to do my MBA. So I went to do my MBA in the US, and this is where at Wharton I discovered the whole venture capital world, but from the academic side. So I took all the VC classes, I took all the technology classes. That was 2008, 9, 10, and the iPhone was out. Instagram was out. The first, Facebook was flying. You had all these tech companies that was starting to shape up the landscape, especially in the US and all over the world. And some of my classmates were starting to get interested in non-traditional careers, because back then we were all, especially finance, we were all rotating around investment banking, private equity, this kind of world. And some of my classmates have started to, think outside of the box, take risks, build companies. So I always thought that, wow, there's an opportunity for us to do something like that in the Middle East and the Arab world specifically. And when I had finished my 2 years, the company was launched, and immediately after my MBA, I was, free for the new mission. And that's how it started.
So basically, the government decided that there's a certain investment to be made. You were working at the government and you said, thank you, I'll manage it.
No, I did not manage that money. Yeah, I wish I had, an access to $10 billion. What happened is that after the 2008 crisis, all of those projects were on hold. And all of the entrepreneurs were, they had no more sources of funding whatsoever. So when we launched our first fund, which was a $10 million fund, that was the year 2010. It was the first VC fund in the Middle East. It was,
Wow.
There was no GPLP structures.
We didn't have this culture, right?
Nothing. No, we were the first venture capital company in the Arab world. And it doesn't mean that there were no investments before. There were holding companies. There were, as I mentioned, accelerators, incubators, a bit of here and that, but not a VC.
Yeah.
And so, we were the first, and back then the biggest. And although we started with a $10 million fund, which was technically a seed fund, and by all means a very tiny fund, because that was a start, and the rest is history.
So basically, you got this first $10 million, right? How did you pitch? So you eventually pitched to someone to get this fund, right?
So, we spoke about that last time.
Yeah.
Every fund a venture capital company puts is like a startup. You have to go and fundraise for it and
100%.
convince LPs to join, and
Yeah.
and
But I'm
build a
curious
strategy.
about your pitch there. Like, what did you have? What did you do
So the
before
pitch,
that to pitch?
The pitch back then was very different than the pitch today, because back then we were still focusing on this idea that SMEs and startups don't have access to equity, that there is an opportunity to bridge that gap, that it is better for investors to be part of a fund that's de-risked than having to pick and choose themselves their companies. And the digital story, the internet story, was very nascent to this part of the world. Although there's one watershed moment where Yahoo has bought Maktoob for about $170 million in 2009. That was basically the first mega tech deal, and this put things on the map, because that made it possible for tech entrepreneurs, software entrepreneurs, internet entrepreneurs to see that there's a possibility for their companies to be acquired. But it wasn't easy. It had to be pitched through a lot of convincing, and and every time we put together a fund, we go through that same process again of trying to see what investors would be interested and aligned with the strategy that we're doing. We're in our fourth MENA fund today, and every time it's the same story. Every time you have to go and
Convince all
build it
over again.
up and find the right investors and the right people and the right strategy.
What was the moment that really sparked, like really changed, clicked for MEVP?
There's some incredible moments. I remember how we got to build our team, who came to be part of our journey, from even interns. We're very proud to have 125 interns that intern with us in the past 15 years, which is a big number. I think we were. I guess most of them have enjoyed their experience. We've also been one of the first to invest in the Arab world and build a pan-Arab MENA platform. So we invested in Saudi early on. We invested in Bahrain, in Egypt, in Jordan. We looked at even Pakistan and Turkey, who are not part of the Arab world. We were there. So this was also a very interesting evolution, because we fundamentally have believed in the MENA opportunity, but built the connections and the networks and the channels to be in those countries, because we believe in the aggregation of those markets and somehow in the form of the unity of this market. Of course, another proud moment is, I can go on, but I cannot think of how much emotionally I was very happy to see Anghami list on NASDAQ. Just that day was an incredible day. We've also had another listing, which is IP Fadil, a software as a service company out of Lebanon that listed on the London Stock Exchange, on the junior exchange. So those are moments where you kind of celebrate, so you pause and you celebrate a 10-year journey with the people that you've invested in or spent time on. There's a lot of those moments that I can go on and on about.
You've worked with lots of founders. We've talked about this in the last episode. What do you find a common trait in all successful early stage founders? What is a common trait between them?
It takes an incredible amount of resilience to succeed. And it takes an incredible amount of patience and stubbornness to keep going. Those are very resilient. Those are people who are in for the very long run, years and years into the same mission. That's sometimes I think I personally don't have that patience.
You don't have this?
No, not in the same way, because I'm lucky to be exposed to so many different verticals and entrepreneurs. So my brain is constantly working in different directions. And it's the perk of being a venture capital. Although we are entrepreneurs and we have to live for the long run, if we just, put our brains to work differently. But some of these entrepreneurs that I've worked with have gone into one mission over a very long time. And I find that extremely remarkable, because honestly, there are no quick successes in this business. It's years and years of hard work. It's years and years of stress and doubting and trying and pivoting. You get better at it. You become more, comfortable with it. But it's painful. Also, I found that the best entrepreneurs I worked with are people who thrive to keep learning, to keep surrounding themselves with better people who are at the core captains of ships who are trying to get the best sailors in that the oceans have seen. And as opposed to the ones who, on the contrary, are egocentric and know-it-all, one-man shows who 100% of the time drive their companies to the ground. Culture is something that people fabricate. It's not something you can learn on import. Culture is in a company is a daily practice, and if it's coming from people who know the importance of building an incredible culture in a company will succeed no matter what, or have at least a much higher chance at success. Because the mission of a company that's backed by a VC is to be a leader. You know, this is where you need to be on the top leaderboard, top tier, first, second, because no one is interested in buying a company
A normal company.
that is ranking number 7, and it's you know, you always value is incredible value comes at the top. You know, this is how you get. So how do you stay on the top? It's yeah, culture plays a and culture changes with phases and time, and culture is a never ending endeavor.
Yeah. Can you tell if a founder is faking it? Like, after all these years, can you analyze like the truth behind a founder or a person by just hearing him or her talk?
Yes. Fake it till you make it, right?
Is
Look,
it a good
it's
thing or a bad
it
thing?
is. I think I've always find that funny, because you know, what are you faking till you make what, right? So in venture capital, in entrepreneurship, you're constantly selling the future.
Yes.
So if you're selling the future, you're also selling your ability to execute on what's going to come next, whether it's product or traction, or you know, or something that's gonna come around the corner and change the whole market and create that value. And it, you know, it makes sense, because inventions, or companies, when they're imagined in the beginning, they're imagined on the base of what they can do in the future. So there's a lot of imagination coming, and so that's the faking part, right? But the making part, till you make it, is how do you prove that you're able to execute?
Yes.
And that's what we look for. We look for signs of great execution, right? We're happily backing ideas and visions. Some people can call it vision, idea. You can call it innovation. You can call it changing the world, changing an industry, disruption. There's so many words. You can call it faking. Your backing ability to execute, and ability to, again, build a great team, build a product, measure product market fit, measure marketing market fit, and have a feedback loop, so that you keep pivoting every time you're hitting a wall, right?
100%.
So those signs of execution skills is what we look for. And there we can have conviction or none, or we can say, I mean, you know, some people tell us stories and they stop at the stories, and that's not interesting.
So taking this a decision to be an entrepreneur, to start your company, huge decision, right? Sometimes you feel like you have the technology, you have the knowledge, you have the expertise, but you're not mentally ready. So, or emotionally ready, or I don't know.
So don't do it.
What
That
do
would
you
be the
think?
worst thing.
Yeah. What do you think a person should have, or in what state a certain person should be in to take this decision and start their own company?
I think it's a calling. There's a calling that most entrepreneurs do. Some of them don't know how to do anything else. Some of them find themselves in this calling to try to fix something. Some of them are simply used to seeing others do it, and then they want to try, and then they may fail and, you know, say it's not for me. And I've seen a lot of those examples. It's true that if you're a serial entrepreneur, chances are that you're never gonna find an employment. I've known entrepreneurs who've built 8 or 9 companies, and they'll probably die building companies and never do, you know, never try anything else. Your mindset, it's like everything. Your mindset has to be adjusted to the reality of that business. I don't think it's that particularly harder than anything. It's like anything you put your mind into. We just happen to be in a culture that is somehow not very
Traditional.
yeah, not very exposed to the entrepreneurial journey. But I don't think it's easier anywhere else. You're building a business, you're taking investors' money, you're trying to recruit people, employees, build a product, take it to the next level. It's mentally you have to be built, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah, sure.
It's not for everyone. I always tell people. So sometimes the best thing to do is to work for entrepreneurs first, to see how it is and see if it's for you or not. It doesn't mean you cannot be entrepreneurial in your life. The virtue of being entrepreneurial, of of having this is a great virtue, but there's a difference in using the entrepreneurial skills and building a business.
Yeah. So at MEVP, you hear hundreds, if not thousands, of pitches, right? From different companies, different industries. Let's say you have the perfect pitch deck, perfect data, perfect team. Is there any reason, any other reason you'd say no?
The only reason I say yes or no to deals is the price I pay for the deal. Okay, so in our work, you're only successful if you make money at the end. That's it. There's no other metric. I mean, there's huge intangibles in being part of amazing companies who have hundreds and thousands of people who work for them, and there's an incredible goodwill that's being created out of that. And there are failure stories, success stories, there are semi-success stories. You can feel all of the above. But when it comes to you and your capacity to continue in that business for the long run and be able to keep raising funds is your track record, and it boils down to profits. And because every fund invests in a number of businesses, 15, 12, 17, depends on the fund, and you need to have a fund return a certain return, meaning that you have to buy at the right price and sell at the right price, invest at the right price, sell at the right price. So you never fall in love with companies. You fall in love with deals, with a price, with certain conditions. That's the core of our business. When we passed on so many amazing companies because the price was not right. Some of them ended up being huge successes. Most of them did not.
Did you ever pass on a deal where you
all the time? I passed on so many deals. Some of
that
them
became successful?
all the time. And I've also passed, I think I've done even more in passing on deals that became disastrous. Because you can't look at just one side of it and say, oh, shoot, I missed out on this. You have to look at the full picture. And
what's the biggest deal you passed on that became successful? That you regret maybe a bit?
I don't regret
Nothing.
anything.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing.
But
Again,
what is the biggest deal like you've passed on and went on to be successful?
I don't even go there.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies that I've been incredibly close to, and entrepreneurs that have been incredibly close to, that build very successful businesses across the MENA region. Most of them are personal friends, and sometimes I just simply don't invest, because what you see of the outcome of a company, right, is the final price at which all the capital stack has been priced at to exit. But if you're in the beginning or in your middle, it makes a huge difference. So if you're in the middle and they come and tell you, look at this deal,
there's more data to assess, right?
There's more data, but the price is too high. But then it ends up being exited at the end with all the capital stacks and all the terms that are associated with that exit. You might end up doing very little, right? It's a huge outcome for the company, and it may be a huge and definitely a huge outcome for the entrepreneurs and the very first checks in the business. But a lot of those deals that you see out there, those big numbers, when you're in the middle or close to the middle towards the end, it's not necessarily the outcome that you expect, and it's okay. It's part of life. So this is not something I personally look at. I've also had a lot of my friends tell me, wow, you did well not going into this company or that company, and I tell them, like, it's not like I did it on purpose, or I'm at any point in time I take a decision based on a certain amount of data points, and one data point is price.
Yeah.
And I'm not paid because I did well on one deal. I'm paid because I did well on a fund.
Yeah,
So my compensation structure and our team's compensation is driven to the fund. So that's very important to know. In every fund, we try to look for dragon companies, are basically companies that return a whole fund. We've had many of those. We've had Hyperpay in Fund 1. We've had Fresha in Fund 2. Fresha returned the whole fund for us. It was one deal. So those are kind of the building blocks of profitability in a fund.
So you've mentioned putting a price on a certain company, which is valuation. How tricky is valuation? Valuating a certain company.
How what?
How tricky is valuation?
Oh, it's very tricky, because it changes from being how you value a seed Pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, Series C. Okay,
So these are stages, right?
stages, and every stage has think of it as a checklist. You have a checklist in every stage of stuff you need to look at before you get to the price. So if you're at the seed level or pre-seed level, you're looking at a vision, you're looking at a market potential, addressable market, team, who are they? Are they able to execute or not? Do they have track record? You're kind of going into that assessment and saying, okay, I'm gonna invest a small amount of money, see how that goes, and then if it goes well, I'll top up throughout the journey, right?
Yeah.
But then the journey evolves and the checklist evolves. At the Series A level, you have numbers, you have traction, you have unit economics, you have growth rates, you have customer feedback, you have cohorts analysis, churn analysis. There's a lot of data there, and then you go to Series B. That same data become more complex, and you have a P&L, and the more you go towards eventually a pre-IPO or an IPO, you're looking at a more numbers-driven checklist, so along the way, the valuation approach happens. Towards the end, it looks like any M&A deal where comparables and valuation methods kick in, and you're able to have a conversation about what could be good price. But there's also terms, protective terms, certain liquidation preferences you may ask for, certain rights that you want. In the beginning, at the very beginning, there's not really a valuation. There's more about how much money do you need to get to the next phase, and how much percentage are you willing to give out of your company. So you can call it valuation, but let's say you need $1 million to do a pre-seed round, which is build a product, show some customer feedback, build a team, get a couple of data points. You're not gonna come and value the company at a number. You're gonna have a discussion about, okay, I'm happily taking 10%, 15%, 20%, 25% of your company as that million. That's how it happens in the earlier stages.
Yesterday, we've discussed off camera MBAs and academia a bit. And I think that was a very interesting topic I would like to explore again with you. So you had your MBA at Wharton, and you said you're focused on VC courses. But besides that, do you think that MBAs are still worth it for the future?
No, that's a very interesting question, and it touches on not just MBAs, on how learning is evolving. I mean, I graduated 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was a different time.
Did it evolve 15 years ago till now?
I don't know. I have to go back and tell you again. I cannot. I mean, the world has evolved.
But academia, not so much, right?
Yeah, it's one of those industries that hasn't been disrupted yet. Everything has been disrupted. Banking, became fintech. Retail was eaten by e-commerce. Media completely transformed through AI and through, and the list goes on. Academia and education is one of those undisrupted businesses. And then what bothers me in the way academia is set, not just universities, MBAs, but the whole spectrum, starting from, early childhood, is the lack of personalization, is treating everyone with the same menu, is going to a classroom and having, 30 people in that classroom listen to teachers after teacher after teacher on a variety of subjects that were predetermined, with zero choice in that process, and zero acceptance of that people are different, they have different needs, they have different tastes, they have different interests. And, they have an incredible amount of technology and tracking and data. There's more technology in how you can customize your pizza before you deliver it, before it gets delivered to you. And you can't find that technology to customize your own learning journey. And I find this to be really, fascinating. And I think there's a lot of resistance in that industry for change.
What is the reason behind this resistance?
I think it's a lot of things. I think it's one of those industries where, it will have to be, there will be more of a slow evolution as opposed to a big disruption. There's a moment where, there's a whole emphasis on the importance of a degree as opposed to the importance of skills, right? So I think, we can see that in many people. They love the degree. They love the degree. The degree comes first, and then, what skills do you have and what are you able to do? That we'll figure that out later. That's what happens when you go to the workforce with zero preparation to actual skills that you need in life. So we're still in love with the degree. We're still in love with the amount of prestige that come with it. Maybe some of the elements of the network that comes with it. there's a lot of self-worth that comes with that degree, but whereby the actual value is in the skills that you build, is in the interest that you develop. Second, we're in the AI era where education is being heavily disrupted by these new technologies, whether it's the way you access content, you formulate it, you
100%.
compare it, research. So why are we still following a curricula-based structure where somebody is telling me what do I need to learn and how I should learn it, and by what year I should learning? Lifelong learning is, in my opinion, the new way to learn. There is no age where you can start, where you can end. It really depends on your interest and also on your ability to build skills that allow you to learn. The same way we spoke about, you need skills to build a company. You asked about the mental readiness and emotional readiness. Is the same thing. If we're not in that skill-based approach, then we'll never be mentally ready, emotionally ready, etc. So I feel it's a huge missed opportunity, and the cost of education became ridiculous, and it's also playing on that scarce real estate that the classroom is artificially creating. Like you have to have 30 seats in that university per classroom, or and then of course the real estate becomes more valuable, and who's profiting? Private sector education is profiting for that. Schools today have prospectus and they list on the stock exchange. They're treated like businesses.
Do you think schools and educational institutions shouldn't be treated like businesses?
Let's think about this differently. The human experience is built over hundreds of years of knowledge accumulation, right?
Yes.
We all agree.
Evolution.
There's no podcast if it weren't for hundreds of years of people figuring out all this technology that brings us here. Imagine if every one of them, and everyone at every step of the way, every scientist, every inventor, every crazy dreamer, every person who's built something or invented something came and said, okay, you know what, where's my royalty on that invention? I'm not gonna speak to anyone unless you pay me. I mean, we only have benefited from this is because we benefited from the free skill, from the sharing from the free sharing of those skills and those inventions and experiences. And now all of a sudden we're in a world where everyone who needs to learn something and needs to be and has to go through that narrow institution that tells you, you're good and you're not good and you're bad and sometimes and that has to happen between the age of 3 to 22, right? So we're supposedly going to live longer lives, and it's gonna be we're going to live longer and longer, but somehow we have to jam all of our learning into kind of the early years, and that's that, and then you cruise in life something. So it doesn't make sense to me. I don't see the but then how you deal about it is I guess the multi-billion-dollar question. It's how do you start dismantling the system that's making schools and universities businesses first. How do you dismantle that to bring back the learning and the knowledge and the desire to learn? And this, how do you do this? I think you have to have a very serious conversation about the mission of those institutions. I think we're in a world where also we need we have an incredible culture presented to us that makes us very good journalists, but at the same time there's no real skills unless you don't specialize and hyper specialize. So where's the role of specialization in that? And then of course how you tie it up with real life, with businesses, with institutions. I think it's we'll have to have a podcast on that, a session on that.
Yeah, let's go back to our question. Are the MBAs still worth it in this time? In our times,
depends what you do with it.
Let's say
it depends on you,
say
honestly.
You're I don't know at what age you did your MBA.
I think I was
24, 25,
no, I was 30.
30. Let's say you're 30 again.
Yeah,
Would you do an MBA? No.
it's a very hard question. I'm inclined to say no, because we live in a much different environment, much different world than we did before. And I would really appreciate experiences with amazing companies and amazing leaders and amazing people. They don't have to be companies. It can be any form of structure, well, whatever you're interested. But I would really go with seeing and being part of rocket ships. Let's call them rocket ships, so that I can see the in work. I'd also try to surround myself with people who could be good mentors, and not just. And I think this aspect is also missing in education, because you go to an MBA, you spend 2 years or 1 year, or you do your executive things, and you meet great people and become friends, and you go out and you have fun, but then very little mentorship remains from that. Once the experience is done, you're on your own again, and then you gotta go figure out the next chapter. Yeah, I'd say probably not.
Yeah, you've told me also that nowadays, like, where education is more about the degree, this paper that you get, that you pay like thousands of dollars on, to then work and pay the loans back. So you told me that experience is much more important than this degree, right? But at the same time, would you hire someone at MEVP without a degree? So is it
Oh,
still
absolutely, and
still
we've done
necessary?
that. Yeah,
You've
absolutely.
done that.
We've had entrepreneurs who came to us. They weren't even finished with their high school.
Wow.
Yeah, we
And you
had.
hired them.
Yeah, they were part of our team. I mean, it happened, and I honestly, again, we're not at a point where when you get a resume, you're gonna go immediately to the experience section first. Then you look at the rest, like where does this person have worked, right?
Yeah.
What environment are you from? That's the first thing you read in a resume. Then second is, of course, the other stuff, including your degree, because that gives you a second layer of information. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying degrees are useless. I'm just saying that the important, and in a very competitive labor market, what stands out first today is what's your experience. There's another layer to it that people rarely talk about, is how would that person was referred to you? What is the background of that referrer? Because if you've backed an amazing company and ended up being one of the best businesses you invested in, and it's scaled. And we had people on our team that went and worked in some of the companies we invested in, who became huge businesses, huge outcomes. Right? It goes both ways. It's a matter of having this reference framework of that person coming to, where they come, who's referring them to, what's how their personality comes across, etc. That's where the most of the decision is taken, not on the resume. At least in our business, and resumes probably work better in an employment structure where you have a specific workflow for that employment. You need certain certifications, you need certain degrees, you need to X number of years, you need to be in a city, you need to be, there's a whole, workflow. In our business, it's really background, is skills, is network, is what you bring to the table, and then the rest becomes. Now, I am a big fan of universities who have very diverse experiences.
Diverse.
Okay, so if you're gonna go to university and everyone is studying the same finance and accounting class, and everybody leaves, I don't find that to be interesting. I find if you want to do a degree, it's one of those rare moments in your life where you can really get outside of the box and go outside of your comfort zone and find yourself in a country, in a culture, in a society, in a diversity that you've never been exposed to, and you take that time to unpack all these experiences that you're seeing and try to learn from them.
Find yourself.
Maybe, you can spend your life trying to understand, but at least use that degree to put yourself in places that you've never thought you'd go to. You don't have to go to the same university. I mean, you have a whole world out there. You have a whole world of specializations, of countries, of regions, of cities, of experiences, of languages. There's a whole diversity out there of humanitarian studies where, sometimes it's not about learning how to code, because honestly, with prompt engineering and everything, you don't need any more coding degrees. It's really about,
100%. Ask me about it.
yeah, exactly. So, it got redundant very quickly. It's about maybe discovering, talking to entrepreneurs in one of the major AI countries in the world, like for instance, China, right? China has a major AI superpower. You're a coder today, how incredible enriching would it be to be in that country doing 1 or 2 years in the best institutions there, or in some of the greatest, just to see how they've done it, how they pulled it off. So your approach to learning changes, and that becomes humanly enriching. And I definitely would. I'd love to do that, actually, when I think about it. If you look at the degree as a possibility for you to find yourself in the most, enriching, human enriching experiences, then absolutely I'm down. But if you're telling me go get an MBA because you need it's like, no, that's not exciting.
On the phone, you told me you're very excited, or you love very much the MENA ecosystem, startup ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest myth about the MENA startup ecosystem?
So let's define MENA. Specifically, we're talking about the Arab world, right?
Yes.
To be precise. There's a huge myth around being those countries, those ecosystem being some. I mean, it's not 100% false, but there's a myth about how they, are segregated. So I've seen, you have the Egyptian ecosystem, you have the Saudi ecosystem, you have the UAE one, you have Lebanese one, etc. But reality is that there are much closer to each other than we think.
Really?
Yes, in terms of how all those entrepreneurs build their businesses, and they all struggle with the same thing. They all struggle, and they can learn a lot from each other, and they're closer to each other, way more closer to each other than we think.
Yeah.
Way more closer to it. I think that's part of that.
What is the difference between these MENA founders and those in Silicon Valley or Europe, for example? What is the actual difference in mentality, and how do they work? How do they operate?
Obviously, they operate in very different markets, and size of markets is very different from each other, and therefore the level of ambition that one can dream of somehow is hindered by the size of your market. So if you're here in Lebanon and thinking about the Lebanese market, it's so tiny, you're not going to go anywhere. But if your mindset, and go back to diversity in mindset and enriching yourself as a human being, as opposed to just looking for a paper that validates your self-worth, is if your mindset is truly bigger than your market, you're disrupting your market, you're looking at the world, you're looking at the region, then somehow you're getting very closer to any entrepreneur that's sitting in Shanghai or in Silicon Valley. The gap starts becoming less and less. And now with the incredible technologies that we have today, incredible reach that we have today, you may have a chance at being part of that conversation, a global conversation. But of course, if your mindset is, I want to solve stuff for my immediate neighborhood, and I'll take 5 years in my neighborhood, then maybe 5 years after I'm gonna go to the neighborhood next door, you're not gonna be part of that.
What should we be excited about in the next 5 to 10 years in this region, MENA? What are you exactly excited about in this region?
We are witnessing a huge demographic growth.
Demographic.
Yes, we are witnessing a political mutation where the focus on economic well-being is key. We are finally building systems of countries that work well within each other, and they're unified by interest, economic interest, but also language, also history, common history, shared of, belonging to the same space. I'm very excited about that. And also, this contagious effect. I've, spent the past close to 20 years now with entrepreneurs. I love the contagious effect, which is basically when you have successful stories that comes from your own country, your own city, your own network, your own friends or friends of friends, and you see people succeed, it has a very high contagious effect on you, because they're gonna push you, if you're ambitious, to say, you know what, I mean, I know this guy, I know this girl, you know, they've done something amazing, huge. Why can I not do it? Because all of a sudden, instead of focusing on the success of heroes that are virtual, you know, the successes of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and these guys you've never met, you don't know, you only know their story through what's filtered through media. You know, you have successes of stories of people who are like you, are from the same environment, from the same ecosystem, from the same background, and that gets you excited, that gets you because there's nothing more contagious than the idea that you can do something yourself, having that conviction. And I love it because I see it. I mean, you have now a generation of multiple generations of successful companies and people who worked for them, and that's gonna and we're at a scale now where I feel like the Pandora's box is open. We're at a scale now where it's going to be it's gonna be generalized through society, and that's super exciting.
If I give you a blank check, no board to answer to, what kind of fund would you build today?
I mean, we build the funds we want. It's not like we're asking, we build the funds we want, and
you're already living your
people
dream.
are free to invest with us or no, based on a strategy. We believe in the opportunity of the Arab world. I mean, we're building MENA funds. We want to keep backing entrepreneurs here, keep supporting them in the technology space. And that the mission hasn't changed, still focused on it. It's exciting times. Of course, there's ups and downs like any other industry, but I would not change anything in the mission. I mean, you know, I think it's an incredible mission. I'm very honored to be, you know, I've seen it from the inside. Like, I feel like no others have had. It's honestly, it's the biggest honor in my life to be witnessing it from the birth and see how it evolved, and it will keep evolving, will keep growing. So I don't feel the need to go and say, you know, that's the mission is still on. The opportunity is still big. I have a feeling that we're just starting. No, I mean, I wouldn't. The blank check is here.
So you've told me something very interesting, that if you want to know what's happening in the world, you should follow the billionaires in the United States, right? Kind of follow what they're doing, kind of.
I was referring to how influential they are on building trends.
So what technologies are you personally most interested in at the moment?
I mean, it's gonna sound a bit cliche, but I feel with the latest generation of artificial intelligence products, I feel like, you know, I was giving this analogy the other day. So Edison did the light bulb, the electrified light bulb. I think it was 1879, and I was reading the other day on how people were asking themselves around that time, what would be a good use of electricity, and the answer was lighting, right? You know,
Yes.
we would use electricity to light the streets. Yay, hooray! You know, electricity 100 years later is everything. Right?
Lowering cars,
Everything.
plants.
We'll die without electricity. Our species will literally die if we don't, you know, have electricity, because
Yes.
it powers everything from, you know, healthcare to food to yeah. So we are now at a moment where we're asking ourselves how these new technologies will, you know, what would be a good use of them. Right? But I think we don't have to wait 100 years. We'll wait a few years, and we're going to be amazed how they're going to change the whole landscape for us. We are in that moment. It's exciting to watch. It's exciting to be part of it. It's exciting to be somehow both a recipient and a builder of those technologies.
So did AI really change the way you evaluate startups, the way you work? Did AI change anything in your workflow?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. because research is faster, is more organized.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about the tools that we use, because a lot of those platforms that are out there have changed the way media is working and content is generation is working. And we spoke about prompt engineering, and we're now seeing AI agents, and we're seeing the beginning of that wave. So yes, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, I think, even at the end of the day, our job is to identify entrepreneurs and invest in them, and there will always be a human touch to chemistry and culture and what have you. But a lot of the work that we do can be fast-tracked and leapfrogged through AI.
If you can time travel, what is one company you would invest in? One company, just one.
I guess you're asking about insane financial outcome. Then I would probably buy a million Bitcoins when they were,
Yeah, of course.
Is that what you're trying to get
Not
at?
not really. A certain company, not really crypto or stocks. What is a certain company? Like, I know stocks are really investing in companies, but let's say you don't want to purchase stocks. You want to invest in a company that now is super successful. What company you'd invest in? Or maybe through stocks.
I'll think of two examples, one in history and one modern. Let's start with the historic one, because
Historic company.
yes, because very few people know the story of the Dutch company, which is by today's standards the most valuable company of all times, which is
Wow.
the Dutch Indies company, which basically put the Dutch Empire on the map by monopolizing trade and changing the course of history, because it was the moment where Europe took over. It put Europe on the colonization path, and it put it on the path of capitalism. And I'm not saying out of admiration for this, but I'm saying more out of fascination of how this company built modern capitalism the way we know, and changed a lot of things. By market capitalization, it would be somebody was calculating that the other day, it would be a $7 or $8 trillion business that collapsed on the weight of corruption and debt. So that's the cycle of that company, which happened 400 years ago, is still very relevant to everything we do today. So it would be a great case study, and that's a historic reference.
The second one.
But to take it to more modern times, I have a lot of admiration for many businesses. I guess I'm gonna pick. I can pick a few. I guess I'm gonna pick. The story of NVIDIA is fascinating.
Very, very interesting.
And it came together very recently, and it happened on the back of so many things happening at the same time. But it's a story of persistence and resilience and pivots and focusing on one industry that opens the other, that opens the other, that opens the other. It's also a story where, there was an incredible amount of support from investors to his journey. So very fascinating story. There's a lot of literature that was put on the stories of Apple and Google and Facebook, etc. But all great. I think we should try and put more literature on the underdogs.
Yeah.
And in all areas, not just technology. It's all areas. There's human ingenuity and knows no limits. So I know I didn't pick one, but it's not an easy answer to question to answer.
I think what's fascinating about NVIDIA is that when they first started, I don't believe they saw the opportunities that their GPUs could have at our times now. I don't believe they saw their GPUs mining crypto, used for AI learning, for warfare. I believe they had this goal of creating a chip that would enhance
Yeah, and that's how.
games mainly,
Yeah,
and things evolved real quick, and they found themselves at one of the biggest tech
I don't
giants.
think they evolved quick. I think they evolved over decades. But
Of course.
to your point on pivoting and on adapting and on how things unlock themselves, it's like it feels like it's like you go from level to level. It feels like it's like a video game. You have to go
100%.
through, and every stage is unlocks its new opportunities and potential, and that's like the Dutch indie stories of you. It was at the top of the world, and then started collapsing on the weight of its own corruption and debt, and it was wind down eventually.
Yeah.
So
Walid, I believe, I'm afraid we're at the end of this episode. It was great talking to you, business and beyond business. I think you're someone super fascinating. From all the people I interview, you're super fascinating,
thank you.
super interesting. Thanks a lot for being here. It was a pleasure. And I hope we can collaborate on something in the future.
Of course. Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you very much.